Hello again. We are up to Chapter 5, Diagon Alley. For this one, I've had to break it into 3 parts. So I can only read about 9 pages at a time before the video footage decides to cut out. It is filming it at such a huge size. It's 3 gig per clip I do, which for video, I'm certainly not going out for any Oscars for this, but it seems to be very high quality. Chapter 5, thinking back to what just happened. So go back and think about Chapter 4, summarise in your head what's happened because it's going to lead in. Who has Harry just met? What has he just discovered? What are they about to do? So, what is Diagon Alley? If you haven't seen the movie or read the book yet, have a think about what Diagon Alley would be. I'm pretty sure if I flick back, Hagrid did talk about, we've got lots to do tomorrow. Got to get up to town, get all your books and that. So quite often, as I summarise what I've read in the last session, and this is what I do myself, because I can't read a 400-page book in one hit. Sometimes I try my best. I think back to what I've last read. Once again, gathering those main ideas, determining importance, and putting it all together, so I'm doing my own recap. Just like if you watch a TV show, generally at the start of the show, they'll go and show you what happened in the last episode, just to catch you up and just to remind you of those important events that have happened, to keep you understanding what's going on and what may be happening next. Chapter 5, Diagon Alley. Harry woke early the next morning. Although he could tell it was daylight, he kept his eyes shut tight. It was a dream, he told himself firmly. I dreamed a giant called Hagrid came to tell me I was going to school for wizards. When I opened my eyes, I'll be at home in my cupboard. There was suddenly a loud tapping noise. And there's Aunt Petunia knocking on the door, Harry thought. His heart sinking, but he still didn't open his eyes. It had been such a good dream. All right, Harry mumbled. I'm getting up. He sat up and Hagrid's heavy coat fell off him. The hut was full of sunlight. The storm was over. Hagrid himself was asleep on the collapsed sofa, and there was an owl rapping its claw on the window. A newspaper held in its beak. Surely it can't be a very big newspaper for an owl to hold it. Harry scrambled to his feet. So happy he felt, as though a large balloon was swelling inside of him. He went straight to the window and jerked it open. The owl swooped in and dropped the newspaper on top of Hagrid, who didn't wake up. The owl then fluttered onto the floor and began to attack Hagrid's coat. Don't do that! Harry tried to wave the owl out of the way, but it snapped its beak fiercely at him and carried on savaging the coat. Hagrid, said Harry loudly, there's an owl! Pay him! Hagrid grunted into the sofa. What? He wants paying for delivering the paper. Look in the pockets. Hagrid's coat seemed to be made of nothing but pockets. Bunches of keys, slug pellets, balls of string, mint humbugs, tea bags. Finally, Harry pulled out a handful of strange-looking coins. Give him 5 nuts, said Hagrid sleepily. Nuts! The little bronze ones. Harry counted out 5 little bronze coins, and the owl held out its leg so that he could put the money into a small leather pouch tied to it. Then it flew off through the open window. Hagrid yawned loudly. Oh. And he sat up, stretching. Best be off, Harry. Lots to do today. Got to get up to London and buy all your stuff for school. Harry was turning over the wizard coins and looking at them. He had just thought of something which made him feel as though the happy balloon inside him had got a puncture. Hagrid? Said Hagrid, who was pulling on his huge boots. I haven't got any money. And you heard Uncle Vernon last night. He won't pay for me to go and learn magic. Don't worry about that, said Hagrid, standing up and scratching his head. Do you think your parents didn't leave you anything? But if their house was destroyed? They didn't keep their gold in the house, boy. Nah. First stop for us is Gringotts. Wizard's Bank. Have a sausage. They're not bad cold. And I wouldn't say no to a bit of your birthday cake either. Wizards have banks? Just the one, Gringotts, run by goblins. Harry dropped the bit of sausage he was holding. Goblins? Yeah, so you'd be mad to try and rob it, I tell you that. Never mess with goblins, Harry. Gringotts, it's the safest place in the world for anything you want to keep safe, except maybe Hogwarts. As a matter of fact, I got to visit Gringotts anyway, for Dumbledore. Hogwarts business. Hagrid drew himself up proudly. He usually gets me to do important stuff for him. Fetching you, getting things from Gringotts. Knows he can trust me. Got everything? Come on then. Harry followed Hagrid out onto the rock. The sky was quite clear now and the sea gleamed in the sunlight. The boat Uncle Vernon had hired was still there, with a lot of water in the bottom after the storm. How did you get here? Harry asked, looking around for another boat. Flew, said Hagrid. Flew? Yeah, but we'll go back in this. Not supposed to use magic now I've got ya. They settled down in the boat, Harry still staring at Hagrid, trying to imagine him flying. Seems a shame to row, though, said Hagrid, giving Harry another one of his sideway looks. If I was to, speed things up a bit, would you mind not mentioning at Hogwarts? Of course not, said Harry, eager to see more magic. Hagrid pulled out the pink umbrella again, tapped it twice on the side of the boat, and they sped off towards land. Have a think about why Hagrid, or I imagine any wizard or witch, would be banned from performing magic where the muggles are. Why would you be mad to try and rob Gringotts? Harry asked. Spells, enchantments, said Hagrid, unfolding his newspaper as he spoke. They say there's dragons guarding the high security vaults, and then you got to find your way. Gringotts is hundreds of miles under London, see? Deep under the underground. You'd die of hunger trying to get out, even if you did manage to get your hands on something. Harry sat and thought about this while Hagrid read his newspaper, The Daily Prophet. Harry had learnt from Uncle Vernon that people liked to be left alone while they did this, but it was very difficult. He'd never had so many questions in his life. And thinking back, we know that Aunt Petunia hated questions. They never answered questions when Harry was growing up. So this is the first time Harry's asked questions and had someone answer him. So it would be a very exciting time, besides the fact he's just found out he's a wizard. Ministry of Magic messing things up as usual, Hagrid muttered, turning the page. There's a Ministry of Magic? Harry asked before he could stop himself. Course, said Hagrid. They'd wanted Dumbledore for minister, of course. But he'd never leave Hogwarts, so Cornelius Fudge got the job. Bungler if there ever was one. So he pelts Dumbledore with hours every morning, asking for advice. But what does a Ministry of Magic do? Well, their main's job to keep it from the muggles that there's still witches and wizards up and down the country. Why? Why? Blimey, Harry! Everyone's been wanting magic solutions to their problems. Nah, we're best left alone. At this moment, the boat bumped gently into the harbour wall. Hagrid folded up his newspaper and they clambered up the stone steps onto the street. Passers-by stared a lot at Hagrid as they walked through the little town to the station. Harry couldn't blame them. Not only was Hagrid twice as tall as anyone else, he kept pointing at perfectly ordinary things like parking meters and saying loudly, See that, Harry? These things muggles dream up, eh? Hagrid, said Harry, panting a bit as he ran to keep up. Did you say there were dragons at Gringotts? Well, so they say, said Hagrid. Crikey, I'd like a dragon. You'd like one? Wanted one ever since I was a kid. Here we go. They had reached the station. There was a train to London in 5 minutes' time. Hagrid, who didn't understand muggle money, as he called it, gave the notes to Harry so he could buy their tickets. People stared even more on the train. Hagrid took up 2 seats and sat knitting what he looked like a canary yellow circus tent. Still got your letter, Harry? He asked as he counted stitches. Harry took the parchment envelope out of his pocket. Now, I did ask at the last chapter when it talked about parchment whether you knew what parchment was. So hopefully when I asked you last time, you worked out that parchment was a form of paper. So the paper envelope, it's quite a thick paper. Good, said Hagrid. There's a list of everything you need. Harry unfolded a second piece of paper he hadn't noticed the night before. Why do you think he wouldn't have noticed that second piece of paper? Then he read, Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Uniform. First year students will require 1. 3 sets of plain work robes, black. 2. 1 plain pointed hat, black, for day wear. 3. 1 pair of protective gloves, dragon hide or similar. 4. 1 winter cloak, black, silver fastenings. Please note that all pupils' clothes should carry name tags. Set books. All students should have a copy of each of the following. The Standard Book of Spells, Grade 1, by Miranda Goshawk. A History of Magic by Batilda Bagshot. Magic Theory by Aldebert Waffling. A Beginner's Guide to Transfiguration by Emmerich Switch. 1000 Magical Herbs and Fungi by Philidia Spore. Magical Drafts and Potions by Arsenius Jigger. Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them by Newt Scamander. The Dark Forces, A Guide to Self-Protection by Quentin Trimble. As I've said before, I haven't read the Potter books and I haven't been big on the movies, so please forgive me if I've pronounced names wrong. Other equipment, 1 wand, 1 cauldron, pewter, standard size 2, 1 set of glass or crystal files, 1 telescope, 1 set brass scales. Students may also bring an owl or a cat or a toad. Parents are reminded that first years are not allowed their own broomsticks. Can we buy all this in London? Harry wondered aloud. If you know where to go, said Hagrid. Harry had never been to London before, although Hagrid seemed to know where he was going. He was obviously not used to getting there in an ordinary way. He'd got stuck in the ticket barrier on the underground and complained loudly that the seats were too small and the trains were too slow. I don't know how muggles manage without magic, he said, as they climbed a broken-down escalator which led up to a bustling road lined with shops. Hagrid was so huge that he parted the crowd easily. All Harry had to do was to keep close behind him. They passed bookshops and music stores, hamburger bars and cinemas, but nowhere that looked as if it could sell you a magic wand. This was just an ordinary street full of ordinary people. Could there really be piles of wizard gold buried miles beneath them? Were there really shops that sold spellbooks and broomsticks? Might this not all be some kind of joke that the Dursleys had cooked up? If Harry hadn't known that the Dursleys had no sense of humour, he might have thought so. Yet, somehow, even though everything Hagrid had told him so far was unbelievable, Harry couldn't help but to trust him. This is it, said Hagrid, coming to a halt. The Leaky Cauldron. It's a famous place. It was a tiny, grubby-looking pub. If Hagrid hadn't pointed it out, Harry wouldn't have noticed it was there. The people hurrying by didn't glance at it. Their eyes slid from the big bookshop on one side to the record shop on the other, as if they couldn't see the Leaky Cauldron at all. In fact, Harry had the most peculiar feeling that only he and Harry could see it. Before he could mention this, Hagrid had steered him inside. For a famous place, it was very dark and shabby. A few old women were sitting in a corner, drinking tiny glasses of sherry. One of them was smoking a long pipe. A little man in a top hat was talking to the old barman, who was quite bald and looked like a gummy walnut. The low buzz of chatter stopped when they walked in. Everyone seemed to know Hagrid. They waved and smiled at him, and the barman reached for a glass, saying, "The usual, Hagrid?" "Can't, Tom. I'm on Hogwarts business," said Hagrid, clapping his great hand on Harry's shoulder and making Harry's knees buckle. "Good Lord!" said the barman, peering at Harry. Can it be?" The Leaky Cauldron had suddenly gone completely still and silent. "Bless my soul," whispered the barman. "Harry Potter! What an honour!" He hurried out from behind the bar, rushed towards Harry and seized his hands, tears in his eyes. "Welcome back, Mr. Potter! Welcome back!" Harry didn't know what to say. Everyone was looking at him. The old woman with the pipe was puffing on it without realising it had gone out. Hagrid was beaming. Then there was a great scraping of chairs, and next moment Harry found himself shaking hands with everyone in the Leaky Cauldron. "Doris Crockford, Mr. Potter. Can't believe I'm meeting you at last." "So proud, Mr. Potter. I'm just so proud." "Always wanted to shake your hand. I'm all aflutter." "Delighted, Mr. Potter. Just can't tell you. Diggle's the name." "Daedalus Diggle." "I I've seen you before, said Harry, as Daedalus Diggle's top hat fell off in his excitement. You bowed to me once in a shop. He remembers, cried Daedalus Diggle, looking around at everyone. Did you hear that? He remembers me. Harry shook hands again and again. Doris Crockford kept coming back for more. So that is the end of part 1 of chapter 5, Diagon Alley. As I said, it's been broken into 3 parts.